Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing great, fine and happy. Well, today's lesson is going to be about asking for and giving advice. This is another lesson of communication. So in this lesson, we will see what is advice, expressions we use to ask for advice, expressions we use to give advice, and do some practical or practice. So firstly, what is advice? When we talk about advice, we need to differentiate between advice and advise. Advice and advise. Advice with C-E. Advise with S-E. Advice is a noun. For example, my brother gave me this piece of advice when I was young. Don't trust anyone. This advise is a verb. For example, I advise you to learn English. You will undoubtedly need it in your higher studies. Talking about advice, let's give a definition to it. Advice is an opinion you give to someone about what they should do about something, a problem, for example. But pay attention. The word advice is an uncountable noun in English, like milk, water, and it has no plural form. However, the word advice can be put into singular or plural. But to do this, you will need these words: a piece of or pieces of. For example, this is a good piece of advice. Piece of advice for singular. Another example, these are good pieces of advice. Pieces of advice, we use it for plural. But remember, we will never ever say an advice, and we will never say one advice, and we will never say two advices, and we will never say advices, because the advice is an uncountable noun. Now I invite you to watch these short cartoon conversations and try to get the expressions we use to ask for advice and the expressions we use to give advice.
Dialogue number 1.
Hi Rahim. How are you doing today?
I am good, thanks for asking. What about you?
I am not good.
What's the matter with you?
I have a terrible headache.
I wish you soon recovery.
Thanks. I can't concentrate now. What do you advise me to do?
Well, if I were you, I would go to see a doctor.
Thanks for your advice. I will go now. Goodbye.
See you later.
Dialogue number 2.
Hi teacher? Hello Yusuf. You look sad. What's your problem? I got a bad mark in the last English exam. I see. But don't worry. You still have time. What do you advise me to do? You should revise well your lessons. And I also advise you to manage your time. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Thanks a lot teacher for these nice pieces of advice. You are welcome. Goodbye. Have a nice day teacher.
Well, I hope that you have noticed some expressions we use to ask for advice, such as what do you advise me to do in the first dialogue and what do you advise me to do in the second dialogue too. And also some expressions we use to give advice, such as if I were you, I would, and you should in the second dialogue. Now let's go to learn more expressions we use to ask for advice and give advice. These are some expressions we use to ask for and give advice. Let's start with asking for advice. You can say, what do you think I should do? Or, what should I do? Or, what do you suggest? Or, what do you advise me to do? Or you can say, if you were me, what would you do? Or, what ought I to do? Or, do you think that I should? For giving advice, we can use a lot of expressions. For example, if I were you, I would or I wouldn't. If I were in your shoes or possession, I would. You had better or you'd better. You should. Why don't you? Have you thought about? Have you tried? Well, let's move to do some practice. So in this exercise, your friend is asking for advice and you need to give him a piece of advice. So for example, here he said, my father is a butcher and he always goes to work these days with coronavirus. What do you think he should do? So you can give him a piece of advice in the blank space here. Take your time, stop the video, use the expressions we have learned. Well, you can say, for example, I think he should keep the social distance of at least 1 meter. Very good. The second one, your friend again says, I am afraid of the coronavirus. What do you advise me to do? You should stay home. Very good. Another one here. Your friend says, my brother is still working in a company in Rabat now. What's your advice for him? I advise him not to shake hands with anyone. That's very nice. Here again, your friend's saying, I sometimes go out to buy things for my family. What would you do if you were in my shoes? If I were in your shoes, I would always put a face mask. Your friend again is saying, do you have any other advice for me? Yes. Once you are back home, you ought to wash your hands with soap. That's very good. Your friend again is saying, what ought I to do if someone is coughing or has shortness of breath? Well, you can say, you'd better tell them to visit a doctor or call this number 080-100-4747. That's very nice. Now in this one here, we change turns. So you need to ask for advice and Here is your friend's advice, for example. You ought to eat healthy food and practice sports. So here you have to ask for advice. Use one of the expressions we use to talk about or ask for advice. For example, you can say, I want to lose weight. What do you think I should do? That's very nice. Another one here. You said your friend is saying, or your friend advice is, if I were you, I would buy a dictionary and read lots of books. I can't understand English courses. What's your advice for me? That's very good. Now let's move to another exercise which is taken from a previous national exam and see. It's not only one exam, it's a lot of exams. So for example, we have this one situation and the question is write appropriate responses to the following situations. So you have got situation number 1, your friend, I feel stressed and bored these days. You have to give advice, between brackets, give advice. So here you should use one of the expressions we use to talk or we use to give advice. Very good. You can say, for example, this one. You should go out with your friends and have fun. There are a lot of answers. You can say, you ought to watch movies and play games or whatever. Number 2. Samir, I find it difficult to understand Americans when they speak. You give advice. You can say, for example, I advise you to listen to music and watch American movies a lot. Very nice. Situation number 3. Your friend can decide whether to buy a tablet or a laptop. You give advice. You can say, for example, if I were you, I would buy a laptop first. That's very nice. Situation number 4. Your friend has just got her university degree. She has 2 options. Look for a job or continue her studies. You give her advice. So you can say, for example, I think you should continue your studies. That's very nice.
And thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, please subscribe, like and share with your friends.